In today's Baldur's Gate video, we're going to take a look at even more amazing legendaries you need to get your hands on. Some of these can be completely missable depending on some of the choices you made during key moments of the story, including ones as early as Act 1 that can affect outcomes in Act 3. I'm going to try my best to keep spoilers at a minimum, however, still keep in mind that we're going to talk about some very specific steps that you need to take in later acts. Now, the first item is called the Duelist Prerogative, a legendary rapier that comes with some really strong buffs. One of them is the Elegant Duelist. This improves our chance to score critical hits and even let us gain an additional reaction every single turn. Now, purely talking about this buff, this will still work with having shields equipped in the offhand despite the wording on the tooltip, and that's because I think the game doesn't qualify shields as weapons, so you can benefit both from the extra AC and the bonuses from the Elegant Duelist. But if you do wear a weapon in the offhand, you're not going to gain that. We also get the Withering Cut, which lets us use our reaction to deal additional necrotic damage when we hit an enemy, and we do have a bonus reaction, so that comes in quite handy. But this also gains the Dueler's Enthusiasm, which lets you make an additional melee attack when not dual wielding. So you must have just this weapon and no other weapon in the offhand, and also no other shield, because it's going to deactivate that attack. So that attack is going to be a bonus action, which kind of also makes up for our lack of offhand weapons with this setup, because you can just make an extra attack with the rapier instead, so it does compensate for it. Otherwise, an amazing weapon to have, really great one, but to get this you need to save Vanra during the second stage of Ethel's questline once you get to meet her again in the lower city in Act 3. However, for this to work, you'll probably need to have saved and helped Mayrina in Act 1, both to save her from the Hag's Lair and to help her resurrect her husband at the end of that mission. Also, if you already met Ethel by going at the Blushing Mermaid first in the lower city, make sure that you don't follow her down in her lair and defeat her just yet, because this can completely lock you out of this legendary prize. Instead, you will want to save Vanra, and for that, you will need to head over to the old Garlow's place nearby, where you will encounter some of her previous victims, including Mayrina once again. So Mayrina is going to be on the second floor of the house, but currently under a polymorph spell. To ensure she survives, you're going to want to break this nearby voodoo doll and also make sure that you heal her during that process. For me, since I've taken down that doll instantly, she was able to just continue as she was before, so I didn't need to heal her that much. But from this point on, she will tell you about a special recipe she hid in a safe on the first floor of the same house, which is the key to saving Vanra. So this is a grenade item that you can craft via the alchemy menu, and you can already get one of the ingredients from the same safe. The only thing you need on top is the essence, and if you haven't used alchemy until this point, you probably will have a couple of them you can craft, which is going to immediately let you get the Hag's Bane. Now, from this point on, you can return to the Blushing Mermaid, go into the cellars using the door next to the bar, jump on this platform, and just pass through the illusion wall to the left side in the Hag's Lair. Now, before you defeat her, make absolutely sure that you use the Hag's Bane and throw it at her to immediately cause Vanra to be freed and have her escape to safety. You can also spare some of her adjacent enemies, because this is going to turn them non-hostile once you defeat the Hag and you basically also save them. Once you're done with this, you can just head over nearby this house to the lower city wall waypoint, and on the second floor you will find Vanra as well as Laura, and if you talk to her, she's gonna give you a rare amulet as well as the legendary Duelist Rapier. Plus, you can go back to Mayrina once again, give her the good news, and she's also going to give you some extra rewards on top. Now, the next item is Viconia's Walking Fortress. This is a legendary shield that comes with +3 to bonus armor class, some nice reaction damage, and tons of really powerful spell reflects. So this comes with the Rebuke of the Mighty reaction that lets you deal extra force damage and even knock down enemies prone. Also, the Spell Guard, this gains advantage on saving throws against spells, and spell attack rolls against you also have this advantage. But we also get the Reflective Spell. This causes a projectile shell to envelop you, reflecting any projectile back at their point of origin. So yes, this also includes any spells. And finally, the Warding Bond, you gain extra resistances to all damage, another +1 to AC and to saving throws. And every time you take damage, the spellcaster also takes the same amount of damage as you, which makes it an amazing, well, just overall shield to have on pretty much any build. Now to get this, you need to finish the mission called Daughter of Darkness that you can do in Act 3 by heading over to the House of Grief while having Shadowheart in your party. I don't think your previous choices in her quest line change anything here, but once you are in this place, you will have some dialogues with Viconia as well as a number of other NPCs. Following her further down into the temple, there's going to be a longer encounter here. This is also the same place you visit for the Mirror of Laws that gives you +2 to a stat of your choice. But before that, if you just complete this encounter and also make sure you don't spare Viconia at the end of it, you can just loot the shield of her body. However, I highly encourage you to not leave the area just yet. There are plenty other things to do over here, as well as that Mirror of Laws that we talked about. Moving on to number 3, we have the Gontr Mael, a legendary bow with some nice effects. One of them is the Promised Victory, which has a chance to inflict a guiding bolt upon hitting a target with it. So this is exactly the same version as the spell variant that, clerics also have. So an amazing way to gain advantage against the enemy on the next attack. It also comes with a glowing effect, so the bow has this neat shine permanent effect in a 6-meter radius that will just illuminate anything. Plus, it can synergize with any other illuminate effects in the game, such as the one from the Callous Ring. Celestial Haste is a different version of the Haste spell, maybe even a better one because you gain an extra action every turn, but unlike the regular Haste spell, this does not have the fatigue debuff at the end or when you break concentration. However, the only difference is that it lasts for just 5 turns instead of 10. Now to get this, you need to follow the mission and disable the Steel Watchers and eventually destroy the Steel Watcher Titan boss at the Watch Foundry close to the harbor area in Baldur's Gate towards the southwestern area of it. You'll need to make your way undetected inside all the way to the final room where you will find Zener Tobin as him and other Gondians are forced to work for the Watch. Now this also ties to saving the Gondians in the Iron Throne, and you can also do from the nearby docks to the east, but you can also just ignore all of that and kind of sacrifice them to go directly to the boss. I don't recommend that, and I suggest trying to just save everybody, but otherwise if you're just interested in the weapon, you can purely take the antechamber door downstairs from the Tobin place and essentially reach the Steel Titan. Now you will need to defeat these enemies, plus make sure you don't sound any of the alarms just in case you do want to save those other NPCs later on. Once you make your way to the big door onto the side, make sure that you do a quick save because this might be a bit more difficult to break through. But from this point on, you can simply head over in the final room with the last encounter. You're gonna find about 3 Hellfire Watchers here, and whichever of these you attack, it's also going to cause the Titan to emerge from below. But the fight should be fairly easy, especially if you have any type of lightning attacks, because you can just destroy them with the weaknesses that they have to lightning damage. And once done, you can just loot the Titan and get the legendary bow from him. And this brings us to number 4, which gives us not 1 but 2 legendary items from the same encounter, including the Bloodthirst and the Crimson Mischief. However, you do need to do something special to have both of them drop at the same time. Now, the Bloodthirst, this comes with improved criticals. The number you need to roll a critical while attacking is reduced by 1, and this can actually stack with other similar effects from other gear pieces to essentially create really powerful builds that do almost constant critical hits. So if you want to see something like that on the channel, let me know down below. But you also gain True Strike, a divination cantrip that lets you gain advantage on your next attack roll, so this can synergize rather well with sneak attacks from the rogue class. You also get Exploit Weakness, so creatures hit with this weapon will receive a vulnerability debuff and as such will gain double piercing damage from this weapon. But if you place this weapon in the offhand, you can instead gain the True Strike as a retaliation, so whenever an enemy misses you, you can just apply the retaliate effect, or well, that bonus effect, the True Strike, on them and gain the advantage, plus another point to armor class on top. The Crimson Mischief, on the other hand, gives you an additional 1 to 4 piercing damage against targets that are at or below 50% HP. You also gain the Red Vein Savagery. When you make an attack with advantage, the target takes an additional 7 piercing damage, and if you place this in the offhand, you do gain different effects. So in the offhand, when you make an attack with it, this is going to add your ability modifier to the damage of your attack. Say for example, you have a Dex build with 20 points into that, it's going to add +5 damage to your attack. But between these two, I would say Crimson Mischief is slightly better as an option for the offhand. However, either could work if you want slightly different effects. If you want more advantage and base more on the sneak attacks, you can just put the Bloodthirst in the offhand instead. But you will need to have a high AC or ensure enemies constantly hit you for that. Now, to get this, you will need to follow the story in Act 3, meet up with Orin, and eventually defeat her in the Temple of Baal in Undercity. But in order to get both of these items at the same time, in that encounter you have to make sure you defeat her first and ignore all other enemies and all other spawns around her, especially the other cultists. So if you just defeat her first, you can immediately loot both of these legendary items from her corpse. However, you will also want to couple this with a bunch of other adjacent side stories, including investigating the murders around Baldur's Gate and even convincing the murder tribunal, which is going to give you other rewards and even save certain people on top. However, to reach the Baal Temple, you're going to have to head over to the Undercity. The quickest way is right from the Basilisk Gate, right here at the start of the lower city. You can just take the manhole nearby. This is going to bring you to the Undercity, and from this point on, you can just head over north until you reach the Baal Waypoint, and from that point on, you can head over in the temple. Anyway, this is pretty much it with the video. If you want to see any other items that you might have missed, check out some of the other videos I posted, including the best early unlocks and some other legendary weapons and armors that you can get in throughout Act 3. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.